long time ago, I was in basic training in the Army, and I had the day off, and I went into Kansas City, and I saw a sign. And the sign said, tonight at 8 o'clock at the Parkway Theater, come see Herschel, the Magnificent Jew. So, of course, I was curious, and I went, and there was a good-sized crowd in the theater. And at 8 o'clock, they introduced him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Herschel. And he came out. He was wearing a bathrobe, and removed his bathrobe, and he was perfectly naked, completely naked. Now, imagine, if you will, the largest masculine equipment you can think of. Herschel was 4 times bigger. And he had a bench in front of him, and he put 3 walnuts on the bench. And he took his masculinity in his hand, and he went whap, 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 and he smashed them to smithereens. And the audience applauded, and when they were leaving the theater, they were still applauding. 20 years later, I was again in Kansas City, and I saw the same sign. Tonight at 8 o'clock, Parkway Theater, come see Herschel, the Magnificent Jew. Well, of course I went, and it was the same thing. They introduced him, he came out, took off his bathrobe. He looked exactly the same, hadn't changed it at an iota. And he put on the bench 3 coconuts, 1, 2, 3, took his masculinity in his hands, and he went whap, 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 smashed them to smithereens. Well, naturally, I went backstage. I was curious. I said, Mr. Herschel, why did you switch from walnuts to coconuts? He said, well, my eyesight ain't what it used to be.
This woman has a dog, and the dog keeps scratching his ear, and she decides to take him to the vet. And the vet takes a look inside the dog's ear and says, he's got a really bad infection. I'm going to put some drops in there for now, but you might want to consider clearing the hair out of his ear so it doesn't recur. And she said, the hair out of his ear? She says, yeah, you have to get a depilatory, something like Nair, and, you know, just put it into his ear. It will take care of the hair. And she says, thank you. She takes the dog home, and she goes to the pharmacy. And she walks up to the pharmacist and says, I'd like to buy some Nair. And he says, great. He says, you know, if you're going to put it on your legs, don't shave for a week. And she goes, I'm not putting it on my legs. He says, okay, well, if you're going to put it under your arm, don't shave for a week. And she goes, no, it's not for my arm. It's for my schnauzer. And he says, well, then don't ride a bicycle for a week.
Woman calls up her friend. She says, Becky, I understand you got a new apartment. She says, I do. I got a pretty apartment. Why don't you come visit? She says, I'd love to visit, but I don't know where you live. You got to give me directions. She says, I live at 1486 86th Street. You'll take the train, get off at 86th Street. You'll see a big apartment house, 1486. Outside's a double door. With the right elbow, press down the handle from the door, push open the door. You'll be in what we call a vestibule. In the vestibule's a list of bells. I'm apartment 4B. With the left elbow, press 4B. It'll ring upstairs. As soon as I hear the ring, I'll buzz you. When you hear the buzz, with the right elbow, press open the handle from the inside door, push open the door, walk straight ahead to the elevator, with the left elbow, press up. You'll get in the elevator, with the right elbow, press 4 for the 4th floor. The door will open up. You walk straight to my apartment 4B. You'll ring the doorbell with the right elbow, give her a couple of knocks with the left elbow. I'll answer the door. You'll come in. We'll have coffee. She says, just a second. What kind of directions is this with the elbow? The left elbow, the right elbow? What's with the elbows? He says, what? You're coming empty-handed?
On the same subject, in an apartment house, husband comes home from work, and he's really very angry. He's very upset. Boy says, what's the matter? What's all the excitement about? He says, that super we have in this building, I can't stand him. What is it? He's so conceited. What now? What did he do? He came up with me in the elevator, and he tells me every woman in this building has given him a blowjob except one. And she thinks for a minute. She says, it must be that snotty Mrs. Cunningham on the...
A man walks into the doctor's office. And the patient in his left ear has a cucumber. And his right ear, he has a banana. And in each nostril, he has a carrot. And he says to the doctor, "Doctor, what's wrong with me?" The doctor says, "I don't think you're eating properly."
Okay, because of the miracles of modern medicine, an 80-year-old woman is able to conceive, carry a child for 9 months, and give birth to a healthy baby boy. She brings him home, and a friend comes over, says, "Becky, I came to see the new baby boy. Show me the boy chick." She says, "You'll have to wait." I said, "What do you mean I have to wait? I took 2 subway trains and a bus to get here. Show me the baby." She says, "No, sit down and have rogalach and coffee. I'll show him to you later." "I don't want to see him later. I want to see him now. Show me the baby now." "I'll show him to you when he starts crying." "What?" "When he starts crying, I'll show you the baby." She says, "What the hell do I have to wait for him to start?" She says, "All right, I forgot where I put him, okay?"
So this gentleman owns a piano bar not far from this studio, and he's auditioning for a piano player. So this gentleman comes in, and the owner says, "How many years you been playing the piano?" He said, "I've been playing the piano 15 years, and I write my own songs." He said, "Really? Let me hear you play a song that you wrote." So he plays a song, and it's really good. The owner is impressed, and he says to him, "What's the name of this song?" He said, "The name of this song is Kiss My Ass in Macy's Window." The owner looks a little chagrined, but he says, "Let me hear you play another song you wrote." So he plays another song, and this is even greater. It brings tears to the owner's eyes. And he says to him, "What's the name of this song?" He says, "The name of this song is Big Titty Mama." The owner says, "Look, you're a very talented guy. I'm going to give you the job on one condition. You come here, you play your set, and you go to the bar. You don't talk to anybody." He said, "Okay." Next night he shows up for work. He plays his first set. He gets finished. He goes to the bar. He sits down. Just before he's supposed to come back for a second set, he goes to the men's room. When he comes out of the men's room, a woman walks up to him. And she says, "Mister, do you know your flyer's open and your schwanz is out?" He says, "Know it. I wrote it."
So this fellow goes to the doctor to get his test results, and he says to the doctor, "Tell me about my test results." He says, "Well, I have some bad news and some good news." He says, "What's the bad news?" He says, "Well, you have a very serious fatal illness, and you maybe have 3 months to live." He says, "What's the good news?" "You see that good-looking nurse out there with the big boobs? I'm fucking her."
The desperados and the outlaws in the Old West, they commandeer the stage with Wells Fargo. They shoot everybody. They got the strong box. The only survivor among the passengers is this little old Jewish man. And they say to him, "Look, buddy, we're not going to kill you because we need you to be our lookout." "What are you talking?" He says, "There are Indians here in the hills. You're going to ride shotgun with this gun, and you're going to tell us if you see an Indian. And if you see an Indian and we tell you to shoot, you're going to shoot the Indian." And this little guy's scared to death, and they put this rifle in his hands, and they start to ride. And they start to ride, and the horses are going. Every once in a while, they nudge the guy, and they go, "All right, Jew, do you see the Indian?" "No, there's no Indian." "Well, 20 more minutes, another hour. You see an Indian?" "No, there are no Indians." Another hour, you see, "Oh, yeah, there's an Indian high on that ridge. He's about this big." He said, "Okay, you keep your eye on him. And when we tell you, you watch. And if we tell you to shoot the Indian, you shoot the Indian." So they go on for another hour. He said, "You see the Indian now?" He says, "Yeah, I see the Indian now. He's about this big." Okay, you keep an eye on him. When we tell you to shoot him, you shoot him. Clop, 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 clop. Another 3 hours they go. You see the Indian? Yeah, I see the Indian now. He's this big. Okay, you just keep your eye on him. When we tell you to shoot, you shoot. And they go some more, and they go some more. All of a sudden, they come around the curve, and there's this Indian right there. He's huge. He said, you see him? Shoot the Indian. Shoot the Indian. He says, how can I shoot him? I've known him since he was this big.
So Mrs. Stein goes shopping to our local kosher butcher, and she picks up a chicken, and she smells it here, and she smells it there, and she picks up this, and every angle for 10 minutes. She says, I don't like this chicken. So the butcher says, lady, do you think you could pass a test like that?
Fellow driving down the Long Island Expressway sees a lot of flashing lights, pulls the car over. The officer motions to roll down his window, and he says, sir, do you realize that your wife fell out of the car about a mile back? And he says, oh, thank God, I thought I was going deaf.
So Max and Sadie are at home watching TV, and she goes to the bathroom. And about a minute later, he hears her screaming, Max, Max, come quick, it's terrible. He goes back to the bathroom, and he looks at her, and she's sitting there on the toilet. Her legs are spread apart. Her support hose are down by her ankles. And she says, Max, it was terrible. A mouse came, he ran up my leg, and he went inside. And what am I going to do? And he says, I don't know what to do. He says, just sit there, I'll call the doctor. So he goes to the phone, calls the doctor, and the doctor says, look, just relax, don't get nervous, it'll be okay. I can be there in about 20 minutes. But until I get there, why don't you go to the refrigerator and get a piece of cheese and see if maybe you could coax him out. He says, okay. 20 minutes later, the doctor shows up. He walks back to the bathroom, and he sees Max leaning over Sadie's thighs, waving a pickled herring back and forth. And he says, what are you doing? I said cheese. He says, I know, but I had to try and get the cat out first.
What? It's great.
So one day, these two old Jews are sitting on a traffic island in Broadway, like they do on sunny days. And one of them says, no, I haven't seen you in a long time. What's up with you? He says, oh, not so good. He says, what's wrong? He says, well, you know, I got married again. It's been a while since my Bessie had died, and I thought it was time to get married again, but it's not good. He says, well, what's wrong? I mean, tell me about it. What's she like? He says, well, she's 20 years old. She's gorgeous. She got great tits. And all she likes to do is screw and suck and screw and suck all day long. The friend says, so what's wrong with that? And he says, I forgot where I live.
Saul and Bessie have been madly in love for many years.
Saul and Bessie, an elderly Jewish couple, they're going to sleep one night.
And they still sleep naked.
The husband wakes up in the middle of the night, goes to the bathroom, leaves the seat up.
And Becky goes to the bathroom in the middle of the night.
Saul says, where are you going? She says, well, I have to go to the bathroom.
Doesn't turn the light on, sits down.
Bingo falls in. Saul, I'm in the toilet. I fell in. I can't get out.
The suction is too much. She just can't lift herself out of the toilet.
He jerks her right arm, then her left arm, no help. He says, I can't get you loose. I don't know what to do.
Saul called the plumber. You got to get a plumber. You got to get me out of here.
It's 2 a.m. Calls the plumber.
Plumber rings the bell, and Saul says, let me in. She says, Saul, you can't leave me. I got nothing to wear.
He'll see me. He says, look at me. I'm exposed. You bring a plumber in here? Give me something to cover myself.
Well, at least give me your yarmulke.
He says, hold on. Takes off his yarmulke and puts it over her private parts.
So she does that.
He brings in the plumber. Plumber surveys the situation.
And he looks to the right, looks to the left.
Scratches you know where. And he says,
Husband said, what do you think?
Says, Saul,
I can get her off the bowl.
I can save your wife,
Your wife is going to be fine.
but the rabbi, he's a goner.
but the rabbi's a goner.
But the rabbi's a goner.
But we couldn't save the rabbi.
Very